What's good, y'all? It's your boy Ross back at it again with another video. So I'm gonna check out 10 WWE moments that were retconned. Now WWE has done this. Hell, TV shows and movies that have expanding universes, they've done this where they've had to retcon things. Certain things may have happened in a previous episode, and then in the future, things are not the same. Like at one point, maybe this rule was established and then it just get retconned later on because it just doesn't make sense anymore. They've done that, and we're going to check out some of those moments where WWE has done that. Appreciate all love support. Let's get right into the confusionness. Confusionness. What the fuck is that? The confusion. There we go.
I'm missing you a challenge.
Now, it's not out of the question for WWE just to completely ignore a major storyline.
Yeah.
Over the years, WWE have insulted the viewer's intelligence to such a degree where it's turned fans away from the product. Join us now as WrestleMania looks at 10 insane WWE story retcons. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. Number 10, The Undertaker vs. Triple H at WrestleMania 17.
Fun
WWE's
match.
decision to have The Undertaker face Triple H at WrestleMania 27 went down well with the audience.
For
It was
sure.
seen by many as the next logical rivalry for the Dead Man.
Yeah.
Whilst the feud to the matchup had some fantastic moments, it was kind of bizarre that WWE just failed to mention that The Undertaker and Triple H had wrestled at WrestleMania before, specifically WrestleMania 17, 10 years prior. WWE decided to just outright ignore this during the build, and it wasn't alluded to a single time during a promo segment.
Which I definitely did kind of remember that. They set it up as if it was the first time ever, but they never really mentioned it. But you would have thought it was the first time they've ever faced at WrestleMania. But it was like, no, Triple H is already taking a loss to The Undertaker at WrestleMania. They never really dived into that history, which I think that was on purpose because they kind of wanted to set it up in the new fans' eyes and, kind of built the idea that, no, Triple H just never really went one-on-one with The Undertaker at WrestleMania. But if you're old enough, you remember that definitely did happen. So I do remember that.
Or even on commentary. WWE were likely under the impression that this added to the mystique of the match. Acting like WrestleMania 27 was their first WrestleMania matchup would somehow make the match more interesting. Number 9, Logan Paul and John Cena are enemies. The WWE decided to have Logan Paul involved in a number of John Cena's final matches in 2025. Naturally, this has led to significant criticism from fans. During Cena's infamous heel run, WWE would have Logan and Cena team up, and it was presented as if the two were friends on screen. However, when Cena turned back to being a babyface, the two were now suddenly enemies. Both had personal issues with each other. Wrestlers hating each other just because one is a heel and one is a face is incredibly weak storytelling, and unfortunately, WWE relies on this far too often. Number 8, Sell Your Soul.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because now he's a babyface, and then they've made a feud with them going into, I think it was Clash in Paris. Now it's like, oh yeah, screw you, Logan Paul, but you was just with him. And that's why the whole heel turning back to a babyface, it ultimately hurt this entire retirement run for John Cena even more.
Now, speaking of John Cena's heel run, one of the central elements of the entire arc was The Rock. The Rock would initially try to get Cody Rhodes to sell his soul, but after he refused, Plan B would be John Cena. At the 2025 Elimination Chamber PLE, Cena would turn to the dark side, and he would in essence become The Rock's corporate puppet. This was incredibly exciting as a viewer. How were The Rock and Cena going to interact on WWE television?
Well, we never got
How was Cena going to be presented as the corporate sellout? Well, just shortly after the Chamber PLE, The Rock decided he was just done with WWE's creative direction, and he felt like he wasn't needed in the storyline. This was completely baffling, as removing the catalyst for the entire heel run left WWE in the dark, and they had to scramble to justify the reason for the heel turn. The Rock would be barely mentioned in any capacity during Cena's heel run, and Cena had to go down the typical "you booed me" route, despite the fans not booing him for a number of years. It was horrendous, and unfortunately, all the blame falls directly on The Rock. Number 7.
Yeah, bro. I mean, at the end of the day, The Rock was the one to really, well, it wasn't The Rock. In the Netflix document, the behind the scenes stuff, I forgot who it was. It wasn't initially the Rock that wanted John Cena to turn heel. the writers and stuff, like creative, came up with that. And then they went to John Cena about it, and he was all for it. Because initially, The Rock wanted Cody to do it. But Cody wasn't on board with it. I think Triple H wasn't on board with it. So they went another way. But the problem is, once they went that other way, The Rock did what he needed to do, and then he said, it's up to you guys now. And it just like, wait, what? But if you want... It does seem as if The Rock was hell-bent on turning Cody heel. They didn't want to do it. So he just kind of wiped his hands with the whole situation and said, well, I'll do this part, do my part that they asked me to, TKO that is, and then y'all got the rest of it. And I'm like, why? I don't know, bro. They fucked up something really, really great, bro.
Wrong killings. R-Truth is one of the most beloved wrestlers of all time, and it's extremely hard to find a single name on the planet that has a bad word to say about him.
Yeah.
Therefore, when WWE cut Truth from his contract, fans were furious, and talent weren't best pleased with WWE's actions. They would bring Truth back in a main event angle, and he would ditch the comedic character for a more serious, legitimate presentation. The Truth name would also be gone, and Truth would now be known by his real name, Ron Killings. But just weeks into this big return, Truth would be back to his comedic ways, and in the backstage segment with John Cena, the entire thing would just be played off for laughs, making it a complete waste of everyone's time. Truth's serious side could have been a fantastic addition to the roster, but WWE just couldn't resist reverting Truth back to his old ways. Number 6.
Yeah, that's all they did, bro. That's all they did. That's all they did. He was Ron Killings. He was so, like, I loved his persona, like how he was coming off on television. Like, this is what we needed. And then they did nothing with it. They did nothing with it. And now he's back to good old R-Truth. Still love him, but they did nothing with it. It was a waste of everybody's fucking time, bro.
John Cena is a babyface? Now, on the road to SummerSlam 2025, WWE realized that John Cena's heel run had completely bombed, so they decided to pivot. Randomly on an episode of SmackDown, Cena would realize the error of his ways, and he would even share a beer with Cody Rhodes in the middle of the ring. After this moment, there was no looking back for WWE. The old John Cena would be back with his old presentation, and the motives for him turning heel in the first place were basically retconned out of existence. The only reference to the heel run were in passing or with Cena interacting with a young fan, a fan he scolded during one of his villainous promos. It's really rare for WWE to pivot like this, but some of the most substantial pivots in WWE history have occurred in the past 2 years, which perhaps speaks to the nature of WWE's creative. Number 5. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns make amends. One of the ongoing story arcs of the Triple H era has focused on the issues between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. In the storyline, it is presented as if the two have been bitter enemies since Rollins disbanded the Shield faction back in 2014. But this is a major retcon. WWE are failing to address the numerous Shield reunions over the years, and even the fact that Rollins and Reigns were on good terms just 2 years after the initial breakup. Why would WWE book the storyline in this way? Well, the simple answer is that addressing the fact that the two were friends post-Shield breakup may have been seen as too confusing. Retconning the post-2014 reunions out of existence.
Yeah, they don't really talk about that. They don't really talk about that much. Which, granted, once again, they went their separate ways, so it makes sense. But they don't really mention that too much. They kind of just mention, obviously, Seth turning on Roman initially, kind of birthing this version of Roman that we have now, and then they go from there. I actually did forget they have had reunions at some point or another, so.
Keeps the integrity of the 2014 breakup intact and creates an image that the two have been mortal enemies since that time. But WWE likes to act that Reigns is traumatized by a dreaded steel chair, the steel chair that Rollins used to disband the Shield group, but this is a relatively new story beat that was only added into the lore a number of years ago. Number 4, the NXT title is a world title. Now in 2020, around WrestleMania season, WWE decided that the NXT title was going to be presented as a world title on par with the two respective titles on Raw and SmackDown.
I remember that.
This caused some controversy at the time, as it hasn't been mentioned prior, and the only reason for this new rule was because Charlotte Flair was challenging for the NXT Women's title at WrestleMania 36, and as the Royal Rumble winner, they had to pretend like it was a legitimate world title. Whilst it certainly made the match feel like a big deal, it opened up a big can of worms, as WWE were now saying that all the lineage of former champions counted as world champions,
titles, yeah.
but this wasn't actively mentioned on TV. For instance, when Shinsuke Nakamura would wrestle on the main roster, he wouldn't be labeled and promoted as a former world champion, so it was confusing as to what WWE were executing. The entire
It mainly was to pat Charlotte Flair's stats, so yeah, you kind of know that.
phase was retconned when WWE introduced the NXT 2.0 brand, and WWE decided that the NXT titles were definitely not world titles. Around 2021, the titles would never be referenced as world titles ever again, which was the right move as NXT was a developmental brand, and acting like their two top titles were on par with the WWE titles was just nonsensical. Number 3, the ECW title is a world title. The NXT title isn't the only title which went through a brief period of being recognized as a world title. When WWE relaunched the ECW brand in 2006, the ECW title was officially called the ECW World title. And this made sense as it has names such as The Big Show and Rob Van Dam competing for the gold. However, when names such as Johnny Nitro, Vince McMahon, and Chavo Guerrero began to win the title, it quickly dawned on fans that there was no way WWE could legitimately be saying that this was equal to the two other world titles.
Yeah, it
in
never
2007, The Undertaker would get the opportunity to pick his WrestleMania opponent following his Royal Rumble win, and he could pick between the WWE title, the World title, and the ECW World title.
This.
At the time, the ECW World title was held by Bobby Lashley, and Lashley didn't feel remotely out of place standing side by side with Batista and John Cena.
He didn't.
However, just a few months after this, WWE decided to deliver a major retcon. They would decide that the ECW World title was no longer going to be considered a world title. And this was confirmed when reigning champion Chavo Guerrero would enter the 2008 Royal Rumble. This was the right move from WWE, as the names that were holding that title would become increasingly more questionable as the years went on. Number 2, Triple H and Stephanie McMahon's divorce. The lore and continuity surrounding Triple H and Stephanie McMahon on TV is hard to grasp. The two in kayfabe became an item in 1999, and then in 2002, they divorced. However, fast forward to 2009, they were once again married. It was implied that the two had never had any issues. The two had been committed to each other for a long time. This all surfaced during the Randy Orton versus McMahon family storyline. This wasn't the only thing that was retconned, as any prior bad blood between Triple H and Vince McMahon was also erased. Triple H was presented as McMahon's son-in-law, however during the 2006, 2007 and 2008 rivalry, they feuded for 3 years, this relationship was never directly cemented to the audience. And number 1, The Rock and Cody Rhodes fiasco. The storyline revolving The Rock and Cody Rhodes is so hard to dissect because it has numerous retcons and pivots that made it difficult to follow as fans. The first issues between the two surfaced in 2024 when Cody Rhodes gave up his WrestleMania spot so The Rock could wrestle Roman Reigns. It really wasn't exactly made clear why Rhodes gave up his spot. However, due to the fan backlash, WWE were forced to pivot, and they would go back to Rhodes versus Reigns.
Which
due to this, issues between The Rock and Rhodes came to the forefront, and the two engaged in a heated blood feud on the road to WrestleMania 40. The night after WrestleMania 40, the two engaged in a title swap ceremony in one of the most awkward and forced segments ever seen on WWE television.
Bro, this segment to this day was like, what the fuck are we watching?
Segments ever seen on WWE television. In the title swap ceremony in one of the most awkward and forced segments ever seen on WWE television. Rhodes wasn't angry at The Rock despite him making his life a living hell over the past few weeks. Rhodes just seemed to go along with what was unfolding. And then at Bad Blood in October 2024, The Rock would confront Rhodes along with Roman Reigns to close out the show, and it looked like he was teasing a future matchup by holding up his fingers in the entranceway. The Rock would counter 3 using John Cena's signature hand gesture and made a throat slash gesture before leaving. Now The Rock would speak on this signal saying it meant something. I'm a long gamer. At Bad Blood, it was a pay-per-view that The Rock attended, and I just did a very small subtle thing. There was a lot of criticism like, oh, it didn't mean anything. Well, it did. It's okay if you're not thinking about it now, but trust me when I say this, we are thinking about this stuff. We are long gaming this. Now, it turned out that that signal meant absolutely nothing. The Rock was simply there at Bad Blood to make a moment, nothing else. There was no long-term plan at all. In fact, things got even stranger in January at the Raw on Netflix premiere, and The Rock explained that he and Rhodes had now become close personal.
That was so fucking jarring, and it destroyed anything they had did for damn near the before WrestleMania 40, and then afterwards all the stuff that they were trying to set up, the teases, it meant nothing. It meant nothing because, oh, now he's in front of board members. He has to play a certain way. He has to be a certain way. He's in front of some big corporate suits and stuff like. Fuck all that. Fuck that. Keep the continuity going. But it was clear to everyone, Rock wasn't coming back to wrestle. Because the whole thing that was built off of Cody's run, we knew Cody wasn't going to lose it because we knew The Rock was coming back. And he made it very clear. You pinned Roman, but you didn't pin me. I pinned you at WrestleMania for night 1. So your story with Roman is done. Our story is just beginning. Okay. Now everyone in their head for the majority of the year is thinking, well, Cody's not going to lose. The Rock has to come back, and they're probably going to feud. Which, once again, I think a lot of us would have like, okay, I'm here for it. Cody versus The Rock, one-on-one for the championship. Who's going to win? You could have Cody lose there and set up The Rock versus Roman at some point. You could do that. Whatever the case you want to do. Whatever. Cool. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm all for it. You could have set up something where The Rock uses his power and shenanigans. Cody loses. Then they set up The Rock versus Roman at WrestleMania, whatever the case may be. And then the unlikely alliance of out of everybody would be Cody to come out there and help Roman. And then you have them have one more match for the title. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, you know what I'm saying? Granted, I know a lot of people didn't want to see Roman as champion again, but I'm just spitballing an idea that they could have did, but they didn't do it because The Rock couldn't be committed to it. So everything after the Netflix debut, it meant nothing prior to. Everything they did prior to meant absolutely nothing once this episode happened, bro. Fucking stupid.
Friends, and they even hugged. There was absolutely zero explanation as to what had happened in between that time. How did they become best friends again? All they did was present Rhodes as a complete idiot. How could Rhodes forgive The Rock for treating him in such a way?
Yes.
It was one of the most baffling storylines ever. But there you have it, folks. 10 insane
Stupid. It was dumb. Then, only for The Rock to come back and say, I want your soul. So wait a minute. Hold on. What? I hate to say it, bro. I love The Rock. He is one of my childhood favorites, but him being semi-involved, only involved to make a moment and then disappear, it has hurt the company. It worked with the whole "we want Cody" movement, but after that, it didn't work. It hurt the company, and that's why he's not coming back until I'm willing to bet Saudi gonna probably throw him some money to pull up to WrestleMania 43. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like, bro, all they had to do was simply just, if you can't be committed, then don't be involved. As simple as that. You know you can't be 100% committed to it. Don't be involved because you set the fans up for failure. So. But hey, comment down below and let me know some other retcon moments in WWE history. There's been plenty of them. If they weren't listening in this video, I appreciate all love, support. Road to 200K. Appreciate y'all kicking with me. See you on the next one. Peace.